I'm Mike, the property tax guy. Now, for millions of homeowners, property taxes aren't just numbers on a bill. They're the difference between keeping a home and losing it. Some take time to challenge their taxes. Others end up paying more than they should. These are their stories.
There's no logical explanation that you could give me that will justify property taxes. Why, if I already bought and paid for my house completely? No mortgage, no nothing. The house is completely bought and paid for.
Why do I have to keep paying the government?
That doesn't make any sense. I feel bad for old people that work their whole lives to pay off their mortgage, and they don't have jobs anymore and they don't work, and their retirement is just enough for them to sustain their lifestyle, but they still gotta pay thousands of dollars
to the freaking government.
And property taxes go up every year. I didn't really understand the severity of it until I watched Snowfall in the last episode when Franklin, he bought and paid for his mom's house
years ago.
But he went broke, lost all his money, so all he had was the house. But the cops and the government came and took the house away because he was so late on property tax payments.
You're telling me my house could just be taken away? The house that I paid
$500,000 for over years. Well, more than $500,000 because of loans and interest and whatnot. You're telling me the house...
Now, I understand the frustration, when it comes down to property taxes. It's like, look, you can have this house for 30, 40 years. You pay it off, but you're not paying the property taxes. And that really goes to like a deeper conversation. It's like, do we really own anything? But I guess the tough part is, and the realistic part, when you really think about it, you own something, you own the house, but it's still sitting on the land. And the land is really what it comes down to. So like they're taxing the land, they're taxing the house, and it's a very tough situation, a tough scenario to be in. But the thing about it is property taxes, they do fund things. They do fund the teachers, they do fund the schools, they do fund the roads, they fund the police, you're paying for the city services. Now, there are some localities, there are some areas, some states even that actually that are starting to look at abolishing property taxes. Florida may be one. But Florida, for example, Florida is looking at abolishing property taxes. Their governor talked about it. I believe his name is DeSantis or something like that. And also the run-up governor, Aaron McDonald. Like they talked about abolishing property taxes. But the thing about it, Florida can do something like that of that nature because Florida brings in $360 billion. You can correct me if I'm wrong, it's somewhere around that area. $360 billion in tourism revenue. If you're bringing in all that money and that type of revenue for a state, you probably can consider looking at something like that. But most of the localities across the country, like, Florida is a big tourism state. That's the reason why they can look at something like that. A lot of states don't have that income. Maybe California, maybe New York, but I believe there's some shady stuff going on over there. But another story for another day. But what I'm saying though is that most of these states don't have big tourism attraction or big tourism where they can look at something like that. These property taxes are paying for your teachers. They are paying for the government. That's why it's important to get involved in the city council city council meetings, because you can look at and try to get that property tax lowered. Because if you have like a $500,000 house, I'm gonna keep it realistic. You have a $300,000 house, but have like a 80 cent on the dollar property tax, you're gonna be paying way less than somebody that is paying $300,000, that same amount in a big city, and they got a $3.50 per $100 property tax rate. That's like way high in property taxes. So it's important to get involved in your city council meetings, see what's going on. But the property taxes, they are funding things. They are for the schools, they are for the roads, and the people in the older folks that do have homes that's been in them all them years, and they do have programs for senior citizens, most of your city services. A lot of people don't know about that, but they do have these programs where you can, get a reduction in your taxes or not have to pay any at all. Even if you're a veteran or if you're senior citizens, you're disabled, there are programs out there to help individuals so this particular situation won't happen. I can't speak to how things were back in the day, because I was a fan of Snowfall. I watched that show too as well a while back, but that was like 80s, what I'm saying, that show took place. And so I can't speak to what happened back then in the 80s, but I know now, like a lot of your cities and a lot of your counties, they do have services that are able to help elderly individuals, disabled individuals. They have homestead exemptions to help individuals out. So these things are necessary. Property taxes are going higher, and they do go high, but the thing about it is they can go low too as well. But a lot of people, if people really flooded that city council meeting, you can get that property tax lowered where you are paying less in property taxes. And you know what that means? When you pay less in property taxes, your mortgage goes down. That can happen. And there's a lot of times it's because of budget. You need to know what's going on in your city's budget, because everybody always focus on the national government. You need to focus on your state and your local, and most importantly, your local, because that's who you pay most to. If you got a business, you pay most of your money to the local government. You have to be aware of these things. You have to look at these things. But a lot of people, we frustrated. We just talk about it on social media, but we don't take that time to really look into it and try to make a change within the system. And it's not even about making a change within the system. It's just showing up. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people just not aware of that. But we just gotta educate ourselves more. We gotta learn more. We gotta know more. Then we grow.
If we pay off our houses, why do we still have to keep paying property taxes? Can someone in government please explain that to me? Like, what exactly do we get for the property tax money? I mean, other than getting to stay in our house that we've paid off and supposedly own. Like, if I didn't pay that property tax, you'd take the property. So, in essence, I don't really own it? Like, who in the hell in government came up with property tax? Who thought that would be a good idea? I'm never going to own my house. The government still has their fingers in the pot. And your pot, too. And everybody's pot. All right, rant over. But can someone explain property taxes to me?
And don't mind if I do. So property taxes, we're gonna break it down. I'm gonna put another slide up and explain it. But like I said earlier, property taxes, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. You know what I mean. I said it already, what property taxes pay for. But property taxes has been around since the beginning of time. You can go back to the Roman days, you can go back to uh uh Indian tribe days, you can go back to any period of time. You can go back to certain times in Egypt area, like in Egypt and Africa. Like you can go back to certain places in Asia. Like you can go back. People always have paid property taxes because it's the land that governs. Anytime you have something on land, it's like, okay, you're paying for the protection, you're paying for the police to come out, you're paying for if somebody wanted to storm the country, or somebody wanted to storm your area and shoot up something, or war happens or something, you're paying for that land. You never really, my thing that I have the biggest question about, honestly, is personal property taxes, because that's my personal property. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, the house, I get it, it's frustrating, but my car, why do you want money for my car driving on your street? What if my car is not even on your street? Most of the time. What if I'm in a different area most of the time? It don't make sense to me. Personal property taxes is the one I have the biggest gripe with. Like, how are you assessing my car? Like, it's easy to assess a house. We do that all day long, but how do you assess a car? You don't know the wear and tear. You're not going out and looking at tens and hundreds and thousands of cars that drive across your city. It's crazy, but let me get down to what his question was as far as property taxes, what's going on. So I'm gonna give you a little breakdown of Virginia. Okay, so here is the breakdown for Virginia. So with Virginia, you got to look at this right here. So you got your education, and you also got your public safety when it comes down to the property taxes. So schools K through 12, 45% of your total property tax revenue funds education. Now this is for your local government. Now the tax state breaks this down for many different areas, but your public safety, 25% of that is allocated to police and fire, right? Public works and infrastructure, 15% for maintaining roads and utility and infrastructure. Parks, libraries, and community service, 10% is dedicated to the community services and parks. Now, why this is important, because you need to get involved in your local government, because sometimes your local government could be doing some shady things when you need to look at it, and you need to pay attention to. You need to see what's going on, because sometimes they raise property taxes to fill a budget deficit, and which is where people raise holy hell. You do not want that, and that's when you see that increase in taxes, be like, whoa, where is this going on? Because your assessed value is either going to go up or go down. You cannot change that. It goes based on the tax value of your home. That means the value of your home increase. But your property tax rate is so important, because if they raise that, that's the difference in you paying $2,500 in taxes on a $300,000 house, opposed to you paying $5,000 on a $300,000 house and property taxes, opposed to that $2,500. That's how much the property tax matters. And if you're not involved in going to these city council meetings, and if you live in Timbuktu County, you need to put in at Timbuktu County and Utah, you need to put in Timbuktu County, Utah City Council meeting, and it's going to pop up on Google, and you'll be able to know when those meetings are taking place. A lot of people don't know about that. You got to educate yourself. You got to look into that, because your property taxes, these are the places where it's going. Sometimes you need to see who's getting raised in your city, who's doing this, and what are they doing. Be educated. Look into these things. Don't just complain about them and shout in front of rooftops. Man, go down there and let your voice be heard. You know what I mean? Go down there and you want to let your voice be heard. But That's all I got for you guys. I'll go by the name Mike, the property tax guy from MTG Real Estate Services. Have a blessed day.